Dr. Wilkins is president and CEO of the East Foundation, where he is responsible for leading the foundation's mission of supporting wildlife conservation and other public benefits of ranching and private land stewardship. With headquarters in San Antonio, the East Foundation owns and operates about 218,000 acres of South Texas ranch land as a working laboratory for its research, education, and outreach programs.
The thing we started out with was really basic. People depend on land. That's it. So people depend on land. Now let's go from there. We're losing land. We're losing about 500 acres of agricultural land lost per hour, we heard earlier. That's in the entire United States. 2 billion tons of topsoil per year. So literally losing land in that case. In Texas, according to the Land Trends data, we lost 1.2 million acres of farms, ranches, and forest lands between 1997 and 2012. So during that 15-year period, we lost 1.2 million acres. Number 3, in Texas, our lands are increasingly being fragmented. We're losing large and mid-sized ownerships as they are broken into smaller ownerships. Number 4, land loss and fragmentation threatens our state's economy. It threatens our prosperity and way of life, and it contributes to the loss of wildlife, water, and biodiversity. Number 4, who cares? So we talked about who cares earlier, and one statement I really liked was, okay, maybe it's not just the soft-handed, liberal, vegetarian, urban environmentalists that care.
I didn't say vegetarian.
Okay, I added that part. But that's what made the next one better, so I had to. It's the calloused, conservative, meat-eating, rural ranchers also. So you can see why I needed to add that. But, and then we've got about a 70-30 split, 70% when we look at what people intend to do with their land over the next 10 years, 70% of them don't intend to sell that. 30% of them intend to do something else. So they're going to do something else with that land. So the good news is 70% don't intend on selling, but there's another 30% right there. And 30% over a 10-year period is still relatively high, even though it's good news that 70% don't intend to sell their land. So that's going to contribute to that intergenerational transfer. All right, number 6. The threats from these losses to farms and ranches and forest lands are more likely to happen during intergenerational transfers. So that's when it's going to happen. So that's when all these bad cascading things happen, is when it's more likely to happen when we have an intergenerational transfer of land. And demographics and some other changes out there will drive a major transfer. And this is number 7. Over the next 20 years will be the largest transfer of wealth that we've seen in the history of our nation. You might always be able to say that, though, as you look on and you look how wealth is accumulated. I did hear a statistic that is national, and it's talking about all assets, and the statistic is it's estimated over the next 20 years, and I didn't hear this here, over the next 20 years, we will transfer $30 trillion in assets from one generation to another. 30 trillion. Now, not all of that is going to be land, but since a lot of our wealth is tied up in land, particularly a lot of our illiquid wealth is tied up in land, a lot of that is going to be, let's just say 1/3 of that is land. Even 1/3, that's $10 trillion. How many of you know how many zeros that is, just straight off hand? I'm not sure. It's 12, 16, I don't know, something like that. So it's a lot of zeros, a lot of money, a lot of wealth, a lot of things are going to happen during that period. And that means a lot of land is going to transfer and all of those cascading things that we're talking about. We spend, here's number 8, and it was a question I heard from, and I forgot your name right there. We spend an awful lot of time talking about land fragmentation. But what are the most influential messages for reducing family fragmentation? And that caused this directional change in our discussion that really honed in on family fragmentation, how to manage that. And then some wise words from Grant Giles. I don't know if he knew they were wise or not, but they're wise, is you have to give a million little efforts. A million little efforts. Hold family events, maybe simple things like that. Hold family events at the ranch. And you can't start too early. No one wants to sell off their childhood memories. And then also, because I know there's a place on the Giles Ranch that's like this, nobody wants to sell off the place that has the tree under which they got married and under which their mother and father got married. Nobody wants to sell that. So, that's number 9. Number 10 on the last panel, which was fantastic. Sometimes it works just to have a desire to get back to the ranch and the drive and energy to pull it off. So, and I think Kimberly's drive and energy there that she exhibits to just pull it off no matter what. Sometimes that's all that's needed, and that's what drives the innovation. Innovation doesn't drive actions, or innovation doesn't drive desire. Desire drives innovation. So that's great. So this brings up some bigger questions, though. Or maybe not bigger questions, but at least some different questions. So we were kind of going from a point of optimism today in talking about what happens when everybody in the family wants to keep the ranch, but we just got to figure out who's going to lead, and you got to go through the family dynamics of managing expectations, cultivating leadership, and creating a shared vision. And it's never too late to start early in this type of stuff. But what happens if part of the family or all of the family is ready to cash out? What are the tools then, and what are some of the new tools that we can develop and begin to think about that can help us avoid all of those consequences that come along with that intergenerational change that will also kick in that land loss and fragmentation? So what are some of the new tools or things that are on the horizon that could make the financial squeeze and take that financial squeeze off of families during times of estate transition? So that's the cold hard facts, is sometimes heart might not be enough. Sometimes the cold hard facts are there's a financial reason that the ranch has to be sold. So what happens then? What new tools can we, as a community that cares, whether you're vegetarian or meat eating, what happens when there's no other choice but to sell? How do we work that out as kind of a land conservation community? So I'd like to open that up for just a couple of comments or questions, so that basically you guys get to wrap it up. And that's my chicken's way out of not answering my own question there.
Neal, I think your last point is a really good one, that it's not just the family that suffers when people transition out of agriculture. And by agriculture, I mean wildlife and everything that goes with agriculture in Texas. But it is the larger community. We lose a lot of resident knowledge. We lose a lot of expertise and skill. And so as the larger community, we need to figure out ways to retain that as families, for one reason or another, give up on farming or ranching. I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah,
It's
so
just,
how do we
I'm
do
just
that?
making a point.
Exactly,
That
exactly.
I know several groups of ranchette owners that basically have never put up a fence, and they run their what could be horrible little teeny ranchettes all separated. They're all open in one big ranch with one big managing plan. And so if people that own small properties could be encouraged to manage in bigger open space concepts, that would be a thing that would really help.
That's one of the reasons why I think the Hillingdon Ranch story is just resonates with people, and actually inspires some of those types of developments. Is look at this. We've got, I don't know what it is, Grant, 40 or 50 different ownerships that are all operated as the same, the same operation under the same management.
And I think one thing that's really going to strengthen the survival of these private lands and public land agriculture and our food resilience is going to be not only diversifying how we ourselves are keeping our ranches from our ranching, our hunting, to this conservation of the environment and even the ecotourism in small bits. Because some child that's going to show up on your ranch or on your property in a school trip, or who might happen to come because you invite that person you got into a long conversation with at the bus stop the other day, they might become the new legacy builder when they grow up. And I think, yes, definitely, as Kimberly mentioned, cattlemen, cattle people are a community of very trustworthy, honest people. And it's hard for us sometimes to branch out from that and realize that the new people on the field have that potential to be trustworthy if we let them in, have the potential to bring innovation that we really could all thrive for if we all work together. And so I think that was a really important point that I kind of picked up from everyone talking just now.
One of the things that increases overall understanding about land conservation and the legacy that we have on farms, ranches, and forest lands is literally getting yellow school buses out behind the gate and having programs that are either formalized or informalized in getting school kids out on ranch lands.
We were talking about, you asked a question over there about social media and Instagram and putting out these stories. And coming from a background of doing some social media and telling the story from rural Texas standpoint, if we don't tell our story, someone else will. And these stories are amazing. And so whether you are telling your own story or whether you are championing the story of someone else, I would encourage all of us to remember to do that, because it's real easy to stay inside of our own zone and our comfort zone of, we're working for land preservation and for family preservation. But the uncomfortable place is to talk to people who don't understand how we think or who we are. And the work of folks like TALT and people that are willing to put their land into conservation easements, most of the time those folks don't talk about their story because it's very personal. It's very, it oftentimes is very private, financially, family-wise, these family stories. But when there is an opportunity, I think that's one of the keys that I've gotten from this, is over and over folks have said, the story is what matters the most.
In my practice, when I would have disgruntled minority owners come to me and want to partition their part of the ranch out, and it just seems so basic to us that we all understand this, but a lot of people don't. They don't realize that to own land in an undivided interest is much safer, for liability reasons and such, and they just need to play the game and protect their asset is much safer that way than selling out. And I cannot tell y'all how many people came to me and they had no idea about the discounts they get on the value, the protection from lawsuits and such. It just seems so obvious, and so many people don't know that.
Okay,
All
we're
right.
running to a close.
Well, I think we're going to wrap this up. I'd like to thank everybody here. Glad you all could make it, and we hope to do this again.